Hello everyone, my name is Johan and I'm doing a live video recording presentation of how you can use webinar software. The one we're going to be using today specifically is BigMaker, together with OBS and some other technical hardware equipment to do a very sophisticated webinar broadcast. I'm recording this video today specifically for Hoërskool Eldorain. I know they're Afrikaans, but I'm doing it in English, and pardon my English, it's not my first language, but I'm doing it in English because I know there might be some of our other clients also interested in this service. I'm thinking specifically of schools and other educational platforms, but also even in the entertainment industry. This can be very helpful, a way to reach an audience of up until 1,000 at a time, and it gives you a lot of engagement opportunities with those people who are joining your seminar, ways to connect, ways they can communicate with you, and also very advanced email functionality to set up reminders and schedules for your seminars. Okay, let me quickly, before we go into a BigMaker webinar, the webinar platform, I'm going to show you a little bit more about the technical setup I have here, hardware-wise, in OBS. So far, the only thing you've seen on your side is my front-facing camera. But I can set up multiple cameras. We can set up at this moment up to 3 multiple cameras. And why is that important? This means that you can have another person, maybe a presenter or somebody who manages the live webinar for you, and he can present, introduce your next speaker, and maybe even facilitate the Q&A so that your speaker doesn't have to deal with the technicalities of running the computer side of that. Okay, so here's a quick demonstration. I have another camera set up and you will see it right now. This is my over the shoulder camera. You can see my hands here. I can wave to you. I can say, hi, this is just an example of another camera. I also have a picture-in-picture setup that you can see me from the front as well. But this is just kind of to show you we can do 2 cameras, we can do 3 cameras, and just to give you an idea of how my desk looks like at the moment. We have a laptop with the computer running OBS and the webinar software. Okay, so that's the second camera I have. Another great thing is that we can bring in a laptop. Okay, so here I switch to the laptop screen you just saw. So this is handy if somebody wants to, maybe a third person wants to run a presentation of the laptop, maybe a photo slideshow, or even the keynote with notes and so forth, and we can see that the laptop display. Okay, so at the moment I don't have the laptop display set up with the picture-in-picture, but we can do that as well. But we're going to use the laptop a little bit later to show you the audience experience that they will receive when we use the presenter software, and we'll look at that in a moment. Okay, so let's see what else we have set up here. This is just the screen of my web browser, my second screen. This is the interface we're greeted with to set up the seminar, and we're going to get to that. But we also have the ability, if I just switch back to my front-facing camera, we also have the ability to play video clips. We can preload all the video clips we need to play, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to go into this video clip right now, and you can still hear me speaking, and while I'm speaking you are seeing the visuals from the video clip that I am playing. Okay, so I am going to go back to my face, and the last thing I want to show is just normal picture slideshow that I set up. I know it's a bunch of wedding pictures, but we also have a wedding film and wedding photo department. So I thought, hey, I have these photos available. Let me show you how this functionality works. And I'm clicking and skipping through the photos, through the slideshow. You can use this to show photos of your facilities that you have available as you talk. And this can be run by a different person. The person doing, delivering the actual presentation, whose face you'll see, that person is not required to run all the technical parts. A third person can do it for them. Otherwise, it can be get a little bit much, and that's exactly where we come in. We do the entire technical setup and we run it for you as well. Okay, I should have brought some water with me, but let's go back to the webinar, and I want to show you the capability of BigMaker, the webinar software. In the past couple of days, I've been researching and testing a lot of different platforms, and I have to say, without a doubt, BigMaker is definitely the most professional experience that you and your viewers will receive. And I think that is very important if you are considering using this for professional presentations to a large audience, and where they can interact, and you can, like I say, present this really professionally with the software. It is very robust, it's very stable, it's very secure, and that all of those are things that are really important when you look at a platform to use for your live webinar presentation. Okay, here we are, we're back in the webinar software, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to set up your first webinar. Of course, we're going to be running this side of the technical, of the technicalities, so you don't have to worry about it too much, but I'm going to show you how quickly we can set up a webinar, and there are tons of customization that is at our fingertips, and we can of course customize this webinar for you as much as needed. Okay, so we're back here on my webinar screen, and I'm just going to click on create webinar. Here we have a choice of 7 different types of webinars, but the one I am going to choose is a live webinar. Just hold on a second. Let me see if I can quickly add my face in a picture in picture mode, and then you can see me as well as I speak. Okay, here we go. Obviously, you want to set up all of these things ahead of time, not do it on the fly, and that is something, and that's another reason why doing a test run is very important. And when you use our service, we will most definitely do a dry run of everything and make sure everything is set up so we don't have to do any adjustments on the fly. Okay, there we go. There you can see my face, and we are ready to create our webinar. Okay, I'm just going to call this test 1. That's the name of the title of our webinar, and description is let's test. Okay, I can select a time when I want this webinar to happen. I'm going to schedule it. Let's see, the time now is 2:04. So I am going to schedule it for 2:15. Don't worry, we'll fast forward, we'll pause here, and we'll continue. You don't have to wait. Okay, so the next thing is I'm going to set this up as a private webinar, because I don't want this to be broadcast and find searchable over the internet. This is just for test purposes. So here we go, creating that webinar. Okay, from here we're greeted with choices for our landing page. This is the page people will see when you send out those invitations. And I'm just going to go ahead and select this landing page, and we'll wait for it to load up. There we go. It has the name. It's busy initializing. This is the time when it starts. And from here, I can customize this landing page. There's a lot of options here. I can change colors. You can change the image. You can bring your own logo in, your own personal image, and customize this landing page the way you would like. There's an agenda that we can set up. This is what we are going to discuss. There is additional info, the time that we think it's the length of the presentation. There's a price which will be free for this, and a bunch of other options. Okay, I'm going to pause here for a second just to wait for this webinar to finish the setup process. It takes about 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Let me just pause here. Okay, and we're back. The webinar is ready. We can enter the webinar and make some further adjustments. Like you can see, we only waited about 2 minutes or so. We still have 7 minutes on the clock before this webinar starts. Just a quick note, of course, you can schedule your webinar as far in advance as you would like. This is just for testing purposes. Let's enter. Okay, here I'm quickly going through the process to set up the technical part, my camera, as well as my audio. So from here, I must select the camera I'm going to use, and the audio is 100%. And here we go. So this is, sorry for how the display looks, but obviously you are seeing you know, what OBS is seeing. This is not something we would display in a normal webinar, but if you want to see my screen while I'm doing this, it's gonna have that Inception effect. Okay, so to quickly switch back to the webinar. Here we go. I am quickly gonna exit this view here. Let's exit from here, and we go back to this manage webinar page. Okay, from this page we can customize many things of the webinar itself. There's a waiting room that we can switch on that opens up a certain amount of time before the webinar starts, where people can start gathering. There is certain things we can enable and disable. For instance, the Q&A. This is a very handy part of this this software package that is very useful for what I think a lot of schools want to do. There's a chat panel, there's handouts. If there's maybe a brochure or document, you can even let people receive that. You can allow people to raise their hands and ask a question. There's a lot of advanced functionality that we can set up and adjust. And from here, we also have a way to share our webinar. So this is a link we can copy. This link we can put on all our social media. We can email it to our email list. We can, whatever method of communication you have with the people you want to engage, you want to invite to the seminar, you can copy this link and invite the people. It also integrates automatically into Facebook, but of all the important social media platforms, you can use this link. Okay, so while we're still waiting, I am going to send myself an invite. Just give me a second to do that. I'm just going to log into my Gmail. Webinar test, and just going to share the link like that to one of my other Gmail accounts. Okay, so that has been shared. Apologize, let's go back to the webinar test. Okay, I'm going to enter back into the webinar. And make sure everything is ready. Continue to webinar. And here we are. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left before the webinar starts, and I'm going to show you, let's go to the over the shoulder cam. I'm going to show you how I can join this webinar from my laptop, but even my cell phone, and there is no setup required from the participants, and that is very important. They use it within their own browser. Okay, so here we go, webinar test. Here's the link. Obviously you're gonna prettify it, you're gonna make it look pretty, and here we go. I am greeted with this page. I have the option, let me just switch to the laptop quickly. I have the option to enter the webinar immediately. This is why, because there is a waiting room set up. This webinar is almost live. If this was not the case, it would just give me an register button there. But you will see it will still, there's still a register button there. But even if I click enter webinar, so this is great for people who's late. It takes them directly to the webinar. You can add it to your calendar. But I'm just going to click on enter webinar, and then it brings up the register page. So when they receive the webinar invite, it asks them to register for the webinar, and you can have them register with all the details that you require, and obviously you get this information that you can use to mark it at a later state. So I'm going to enter my name. I must type on the laptop keyboard, not my computer keyboard, and okay, there we go. I've registered now. So here I am in the waiting room. The webinar is about to start, and let me just switch back to my face for a moment. Say for instance this webinar was still a week, 2 weeks, or 2 days before it starts. That person would have received an email, and they still do receive the email. Let me quickly show you. If I go to the laptop view, you can see I'm busy talking. But if we go to the laptop, you'll see I did receive a register confirmation, and I can add it on to my calendar, and I can click on this link to join from there. Okay, so let's say this person registered 2 weeks ahead of time. They would receive this initial email, and then they would also receive periodic email reminders before the webinar takes place, with the last one I think happening 10 minutes before the webinar, and all of this is customizable, so you'll be sure that your attendees don't forget or miss your webinar. Okay, what we're going to do from here on forward is we're going to quickly have a look at the presenter implementation and also the audience implementation. What do you see? What functions do you have as a presenter, and what functions are available to those who are participating and watching? Okay, so let's quickly switch to the webinar view. This is the preview screen. The reason you're seeing this weird inception thing is just because we are doing a screen recording. This is not something that will show up when we are doing a webinar. This is just because we're doing a webinar and we're recording our screen, which is something we don't normally do. Okay, if we click here, we get a list of functions that we can enable or disable at a moment's notice. One of the first functions I want to look at is the Q&A function, because I know this is very important to some of my clients. You can enable this Q&A section or disable it if you only want to open it up at a later stage at the Q&A section of the webinar. Or you can leave it enabled and let those questions come in as it comes up, and answer them immediately, or wait for the appropriate time later on to answer those Q&As. All right, so let's quickly switch to the laptop, to the client view. And in the client view, you can see I already joined the presentation here. We have a chat section where we can communicate with the fellow attendees. We can do it publicly, privately. We have the Q&A section, and that's where we're quickly gonna look at. So, say for instance, I want to ask a question. I can type in, what are your rates? I must probably type on the laptop keyboard, not the computer keyboard. What are your rates? Okay, that's a question that we are going to ask, and we're going to hit send, and it has been posted. Okay, so from here, let's quickly go back to our presenter view, and you will see there is a new notification for the Q&As, and a question has been asked, and I can see that. Like I say, you can wait for these to pile up, or you can answer them as they come in, depending on how you want to run your own webinar. Questions can be voted on. If you make it public, you have an option to enable or disable. But say for instance, somebody has the same question, they don't have to ask it again or show that, yes, the best way to show that this is an important question is just to vote for it. Cast your vote and say, I also want this question answered. This is a very, very handy function in Big Marker webinar software. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is the polls functionality. I'm going to stay in the presenter view, and we're going to launch a poll. This is handy to get your audience talking, maybe get their feedback, their response on a certain matter. Maybe you want to use their answers to set up your next argument. Okay, so let's just type something really boring. Are you having a good time? Sorry, let me just switch back to the webinar view. Okay, so that's our question, and then we can give them an option, different options for their answers, yes or no, and we can obviously add even more options, but for this example we'll just have these two. All right, from here I can add it to queue to introduce it at a later stage, or we can say start polling right away, and that's what we will do. I'll just confirm that. All right, awesome. Okay, so you'll see here in the polls we have an open poll. We can go back to close poll, but this one is active and live, and we can see nobody has answered it yet. And let's just go back to our laptop view, and here you will see the viewer, the participant, is presented with this pop-up, and they can very easily dismiss it to answer it later, or they can just click the answer and hit submit, and they submit their response. Okay, now if we just go back to our presenter view, here you'll see we have the results update live. So we can see, okay, 100% of the people are having a good time. Oh, but it's only one person. That is also so handy. But from here, I can use this to make my next point if I want to do that. Okay, the last thing I want to show you, we're nearing the end of this presentation. Don't worry about it. The last thing I want to show you is this handout section. Okay, I don't have anything attached at the moment, but you can attach documents for your participants, for your viewers, that they can download and take home with them. Maybe a little bit more information or a brochure, leaflet of some sort that they can refer to and download afterwards. All right, I think that is the most important features, the most basic features that we quickly went through. There's just one other thing I quickly want to show you, and that is how easy it is to access this webinar from your cell phone. So I'm quickly going to go to the over the shoulder, and I bring my cell phone up here close to the camera, and I'm just in this email that I received, and I click on that, and I just wait for that to open up, and I can hit enter webinar. Okay, it gives me an option. I can either open it in the iOS app, but I don't want to take time. I want to jump right into this presentation, so I'm just going to click on open in browser. So simple, so easy, a few clicks and it takes you into the live webinar. Okay, so it prompts you just to click to connect your audio, and I'm in. Here you'll see we have almost exactly the same functionality on this cell phone experience that we would have on the on the desktop version. We have the handouts, we have polls, we have Q&A, and we have the chat where we can chat with all the other attendees. Very, very handy. Okay. All right. That's it from me. I think that covers the basics. I'm sure you have many questions regarding your specific needs. And I would like to encourage you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and with those questions. I know everybody have different needs, and just to be upfront, I think this software, from everything I've tested, gives you the most functionality and options to tweak and to adjust your webinar for your specific needs. So I'm sure we will be able to do whatever your specific needs are. Just a side note as well, during this presentation you might have noticed that there is somewhat of a delay on the webinar going out live. That is completely normal. You always have delay with a live broadcast. Even if it's television sports, there's always a few seconds delay, and it's exactly the same with a live stream or a live webinar. There's about a 15-second delay, just so that you know and are aware of that. Thank you very much. Like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Bye-bye.